and welcome back to the Politbureau.
We must know that there will be consequences, and that the consequences are going to be quite harsh against them. Now, the VBS saga is the most concerning one, just as much as the Steinhoff saga as well. We need to speed up the process of ensuring that those who have done wrong against our people should be made to account without delay. It hurts our people when they see those people who are involved in all these corrupt activities just carrying on with their lives as though nothing has happened. And they carry on having stolen our people's money. And we say that must come to an end.
Well, it's a universal declaration of human rights that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But in the court of public opinion, it always plays out the other way around. Interestingly, it seems that that's the posture that the ANC seems to be taking. But as you will see now, comparing the ANC's consequence management approach to that of, or the lack thereof, or from the economic freedom fighters, you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. To discuss this matter further, I'm joined in studio by Director of Research at Mapangube Institute of Strategic Reflection, Susan Boyson. Professor Susan, thank you so much for being here. Makosi Nkosi, who is a media and political consultant, thank you so much for being here. And the national spokesperson of the ANC, Pule Mabe. Pule, I guess it's true, hey? You damned if you do, you damned if you don't.
Well, I think what we're beginning to do as the African National Congress, something that our president has pronounced yesterday in KwaZulu-Natal, is that we need to be, not to be seen, we need to act with speed. Where there are allegations of wrongdoing, we need to be seen, we need to be acting with speed, not just to be seen. So that's why the matter has now been referred to the Integrity Commission as it relates to VBS, so that the Integrity Committee could act with the necessary speed to study the report, make sure that those whose names are mentioned or could be implicated are brought forward to be able to clarify what has been their role in this VBS issue.
Is it at all an issue? Because if you look at that intro, for instance, if you take into consideration innocent until proven guilty,
yes.
There is, I think there are about 3 high-ranking ANC officials in the province who are implicated in this report. 2 of them have indicated, including Kabelo Matipe, who said that he's taking this report under review. They've said that this report is being taken under review. Is the ANC not putting the cart before the horse by taking this matter to the Integrity Commission even before these members have been found guilty, also taking into consideration that they're taking the report under review?
Well, the ANC can't be seen to be flip-flopping. There is a report that is now out there in the public. The ANC is expected to act. We can't be delaying action. That's why we are saying a structure that has been set up in the form of the Integrity Commission, refer this to them. They will, in the normal course, be able to advise on the kind of course of actions that are being considered by the organization. That is very important.
Makosini, is this the right strategy to take?
Look,
to be seen to be doing something.
It is, of course. I mean, look, here we have a problem. We have a bank that has been looted, and nobody says they looted it. You know, so you cannot leave the processes to unfold by themselves. A political party that has in one way or the other been implicated has to come forward and show what they are doing. I think that's a better strategy than to be defensive. Because in the court of public opinion, as you correctly point out, let's take an example, for instance, of Floyd Shivambu and his brother. It resonates with the example of Jacob Zuma and Duduzane Zuma, whereas the link between the two, insofar as their business, the businesses that they conduct, is the link is tenuous at best. It's the same thing with the EFF and Floyd Shivambu. The link is tenuous. You'd have to conduct further investigations to see if further down the line there is no connection. But to take a position that says we are not going to do anything about it and be defensive, it says to the public that most politicians are corrupt, most politicians steal, and those who don't steal, it's because they don't have access to power. So it's important that as also we are moving towards the election next year, if you are going to be running on anti-corruption, you must show that you yourself are not corrupt. Because one thing that people, voters, hate more than they hate a corrupt politician, they hate a corrupt politician who is a hypocrite.
Let's, Professor Susan Boyson, let's speak about the EFF stance on this matter. They released a statement very late in the day after the story broke, but no mention whatsoever about one particular person, that's Brian Shivambu, who is, of course, a member of the EFF, that he has been implicated. To date, there's no a statement from the EFF side that these are the actions that we will be taking henceforth since this one of our members have been implicated.
Yes, certainly. It has raised many, many questions that EFF has been very slow coming forward with a definitive position, and much slower than they have been usually in pronouncing on this kind of matter. We know that they have scheduled a media briefing for Tuesday next week, which is, by EFF standards, that takes a long time. And so there must be more substance, much more substance, quite a problem probably, which they're trying to address, and finding a way how to present it publicly. For the EFF in particular, being such a watchdog, opposition watchdog, and corruption being the main political issue of the day that often overrides many of the ideological differences of yesteryear. Now it is which political party can be definitively clear-cut anti-corruption. And the EFF is not coming on strongly on that front. And it is going to raise many, many questions depending on what kind of explanation they come up with.
Many questions, but what are some of the implications that the ANC as well as the EFF could face heading into the elections, and also taking into consideration that these are the two big political parties in Limpopo, the biggest two political parties in Limpopo?
It has massive implications for both these parties. Also because exactly the process that has been outlined, yes, there are actions. Actions are being announced. We know the NPA and the Hawks are said already be working on this. But there are going to be many challenges to this because the repercussions are so massive. People are going to be challenging it, and that probably means that all of these political parties are going to be entering into election campaigns, and it's probably now a mere 6-7 months away from the next national and provincial elections, including Limpopo. They're going to be heading into these elections with massive clouds of did they, didn't they, and what are going to be the consequences, and it's going to be difficult for the ANC. Yes, their integrity committee has been activated, but for them to come out and avoid the type of situation that we've seen with Tom Moyane, for example, where he said, people cannot judge me on this, I cannot have two processes unfolding simultaneously. We need clear indications from ANC, including ANC, how they're going to be handling that.
Would you like to respond to that, Pula?
Well, we have already outlined measures that are being undertaken. I think just to give the people of this country comfort on some of the measures that we in the ANC, not just as a party, but even in government, have been doing. For instance, one of the things we have done was to lead the process towards the promulgation of the Financial Services Regulatory Body, including the Financial Services Conduct Authority. It is these two bodies that played a critical role towards exposing the rod, if you may want to refer it, within the VBS, because it was out of, you see, you never had the Prudential Authority within the South African Reserve Bank. You now have the Prudential Authority, which is led by the Deputy Governor. What this Prudential Authority begins to do, it begins to enforce the process of ethical conduct, but also enforce good governance.
And here's the thing about the VBS case, is that although it may be an institution that probably has its majority clients in Limpopo, based in Limpopo, it's not a provincial issue, it's a national issue, and I guess it has some sort of implications for the ANC as well.
Correct. That's why I'm saying that's why we're beginning to also demonstrate that forcing good conduct, even by corporate citizens, whether it's Steinhoff, whether it's VBS, it's something that we're taking seriously, even by way of legislative undertakings, establishing these bodies that are beginning to expose some of these problems is sort of a commitment on our part to expose the rot.
Makosini, as Professor Bozen has indicated that the EFF will be having a press briefing on Tuesday. If they asked for your services, would you be giving them free advice? What would you say? What should they be doing?
I think what needs to be looked at broadly, let's look at the broader picture here. It talks to the funding of political parties. The system is such that, yes, we are called a multi-party democracy, but in essence, the commercial interests and everyone else forces us to be a two-party state. So it's the ruling party that will be able to raise funding, but because it is in power, you know, people would want to give it money because they're expecting something, or whether it's a, you know, a friendly regulation or whatever the case may be, and the opposition party so that it represents the interests of the minorities in a country where you have a big and powerful majority. So I think what we need to look at is how political parties are funded. Because if the EFF, for instance, is not going to be receiving funding from other sources, it means that it will just die and be like other smaller parties like the UDM. So the issue here is the funding that we South Africans must talk about. Because I'll tell you, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Political party funding is the gateway to corruption in this country. And if you don't address that, you're not going to be able to address the problem of corruption.
You raise another interesting point, but unfortunately we can't even delve into this. We've run out of time. Thank you guys so much for coming through. Professor Susan Boyson, Makosi Nkosi, as well as the national spokesperson of the ANC, Pule Mabe. After the break, the Politbureau continues.